All right, Dan, have you ever heard of a YouTube channel called Into the Shadows?
I have, Frank. Yes.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I don't know what it's. Yeah, it's Into the Shadows. Yes, I have.
All right. I am actually a fan of this channel. Simon is the creator and host,
Hmm.
although I am quite confident that Simon, he has to have a team of writers assisting him because the level of information, I mean, this is a really cool channel.
Hmm.
I'm something of a history buff. I really love history. I like to just kind of dabble in geopolitics, and by that I mean just listen to podcasts and watch some YouTube channels. But what I found in Into the Shadows is that I was kind of surprised, hopeful, and then mildly shocked and slightly disappointed to see that Simon actually has decided to go and take a look at the Reid technique of interviewing and interrogation. So
Okay.
I figured we would take a shot at this. Let's listen to it. Let's see how he does it.
Okay. Good.
All right.
An interrogation room is something that you're likely familiar with. It's practically a stereotype at this point. A tiny room with a two-way mirror, barren walls devoid of all decorations, and a large metal table with a half ring welded to the top of one side for handcuffs to slide
I would like to say really briefly here, Dan, is that,
through. But
sorry, is that in the very beginning of this video, there was a sponsorship. So I just forwarded the video to where he starts to talk about, I suppose, interrogations. But there wasn't like an introduction saying that he was going to talk about the Reid technique,
Right.
even though that's the
Yeah.
name of it. So I just
Yeah.
fast forwarded past the introductions.
would it be surprising for you to learn that those archetypal depictions are outdated and no longer reflect how most interrogation rooms are set up? Sure, movie makers get some things correct, such as the size of the room, which is meant to provide just enough space for three people, two interrogators and a suspect, while dialing up the pressure by inducing a feeling.
What the heck? If you are listening to this on a podcast, we are looking at an image that Simon has put up of a subject without a shirt on. It looks like he is experiencing some type of mental crisis. He's in what could be an interview room in the corner. So already what we can see is going on in the video that Simon is doing for us is he's trying to showcase, I suppose, that interrogation techniques involve intense psychological torture of some kind. This is just from what I'm getting on the video.
Right. In the Reid technique, we always just kind of recommend that if you can set up a room, it be approximately an 8 by 10 room. It should be comfortable. Should have 2 to 3 chairs in there, a table. The temperature should as well be comfortable for the suspect as well as the investigator. So there's nothing special, but we also say that the focus should be too as plain as possible, so there's no distractions in the room as well.
Exactly.
Of claustrophobia, but the rest of it, not so much. While placing the suspect and interrogators on opposite sides of a large metal table may make for more powerful cinematography, in real life, this setup violates several fundamental rules of modern interrogation. Large tables that create a physical barrier both inhibit the interrogator's ability to observe the suspect's body language.
Why are they showing a scene from Scarface right here?
Is that the movie?
Yeah, so this
Okay,
was
yeah.
with
Right, Al Pacino.
With Al
Yeah.
Pacino,
That
yeah,
was a
playing
great movie.
Tony Montana,
Great movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what
Say
they're doing
hello
is,
to my little friend. Yeah.
and I can't help but wonder if this particular scene was chosen. If we remember the movie Scarface, when he was being interviewed by these two detectives in Miami, it was a very accusatory process. They were very
Yeah.
cynical. They were down talking him. There were some racial and class undertones going on. So I can't help but feel that the creators of this video that we're watching, they're already setting up a narrative frame that all interviews, interrogations are accusatory, they're cynical, there could be class, there could be other kind of issues that's being brought up. So it seems like there's already guilt by association that's going on here. A very effective method of propaganda too. So, which not this, but in general, you'll see that in some of these propaganda political videos that are produced. Not saying that Into the Shadows did it. Let's see what else we got.
And watch for nonverbal cues while also creating an us versus you mentality. This is less than useful, as many interrogators now prefer to present themselves as a friend or savior that is trying to help the suspect as opposed to a foe.
I say as a friend, I'm never anybody's savior. In there is that
even friend is a stretch.
Yeah,
I mean, even that's a stretch. Yeah,
I think it's more so not so much even as a friend, but as a professional in there, trying to determine the truth from this individual, hearing their story. So, but also treating them with decency and respect. So, how you want to phrase that, call that, that's up to you. But it's not a savior, it's not something of a false nature. We're trying to elicit information, the truth, or get the individual's story. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Something else I would like to point out is that as you watch a lot of videos on YouTube or any kind of format, one thing that I always like to pay attention to is how the video is presented. And the number one thing that I look for is lighting, Dan. I look for lighting. Is there a lot of blue-coded lighting, purple lighting, dark blue lighting, gray lighting? A lot of that is designed to kind of give a malevolent feel to whatever the subject matter is. Like, if you wanted to make like something seem scary, you can put in a blue dark spectrum light into it. There's other ways. Another thing to pay attention to from a musical perspective is going to be pacing and the key signature that the music is in. And already, I'm looking for let's see, I'm trying to think of the proper musical term. It escapes me right now. But a bunch of minor keys, a bunch of slow rhythms in there that will speed up, almost like a jump scare kind of effect. And I'm already seeing, I'm already seeing a couple of those vectors in this video. So but it's kind of standard fare of Into the Shadows. I mean, they'll make videos like, this nuclear bomb, if it goes off, could kill all of humanity, or if this happened, this would happen. So they tend to have like an apocalyptic end of the end of days kind of feel, which is what I like about them. Actually, I like it because it doesn't remind me of work or my mundane, boring life. So.
Trying to nail them for a crime. These types of considerations are just a few examples of the powerful psychology at play within an interrogation room. And while many people are aware that there is some level of psychological trickery happening, most are ignorant of how effective these techniques are at getting confessions. This ignorance works in the police's favor. But how much of this well-respected psychology is real, and how much is just outdated, pseudo-scientific nonsense? Also,
oh boy, and there it is. Now we haven't given Simon a fair hearing here, but this right here, I would say, Dan, and I'm being as charitable as possible, would be at the core of many of the haters and critics of the Reid technique. They would simply say that, everything that we know is based on outdated bunk science. And I would like to point out that there is a philosophical fallacy that's going on, or a logical fallacy with a statement like that. Can you guess what that fallacy is? It's a formal fallacy.
What is it, Frank?
So what it is this. It's because something is new, it is therefore good and true. Because something is old, it is therefore bad and not true. And that is a formal... That's a formal inductive fallacy, I believe is what it is. And a lot of our critics make that mistake. So let's go on a little bit longer, see what we got.
How much is useful for solving crimes, and how much often results in false confessions and errant convictions?
Oh boy, so we can already see what the narrative shift is doing. He's setting up the Reid technique to be based on outdated bunk science, and he's going to probably say that the Reid technique produces false confessions. Instead of outright accusing us of that, and we are about 3 minutes into his video, he's taken an indirect approach. However, I do believe that he's probably going to circle around and take a much more direct line of attack against us. I would like to point out that there is a lighting change that's gone on. The video's gone a little bit darker, and it sounds like the the rhythm and the key signature is starting to pick up a little bit in the music. So there's literally a narrative shift that's going on in the video right now.
All right, so before we talk about how interrogators pry confessions out of unwilling suspects, we need to continue dispelling many of the myths surrounding.
I'll say one thing about his little cutscenes in here, and this is a compliment to Simon. At least he is not using AI-generated videos. And I'm not going to say that AI-generated videos are bad 100% of the time, but they can be so annoying these days. So at least he's not using those. At least they're clips from actual movies.
Great.
But yeah.
The interrogation room itself and talk about the very real ways that these rooms play a vital part in the interrogation process. So let's begin with their construction. Standardized, best design practices recommend that police departments have access to at least 3 separate rooms, each of which should be soundproofed with a speech privacy potential of at least 85.
What the heck? Where is he getting this from?
I've never heard that before.
What?
I mean, I can see the privacy aspect. I can see is that rooms, you don't want to be hearing other people's conversations in other parts of the building or in the room next to you and that. But I've never heard that before. 85 potential of private speech privacy, 85 what, decibels, whatever.
I'm not quite sure, and I've never heard of a recommendation of 3 soundproof rooms. But
yeah,
let's take his word for it. I'll give him that. Okay, sure. Okay. Whatever, Simon. Okay.
This means that normal conversational volume is inaudible, and shouting is only barely audible.
Gosh, what movie is that a clip from? I'm sorry.
Is that George Clooney in there?
I'm afraid to back it up.
I know.
With our software.
Yeah.
So at this point, and this isn't this is a criticism, but this is a neutral criticism. A lot of these cuts are kind of distracting. I like Simon. Simon is a put together looking guy. I like his image. Let's just focus on him and just get to the point. Like these little. Now I know why he's doing this, and some people will probably call our channel boring. You know what? This is probably why Simon has got over 1 million subscribers in Into the Shadows.
Yeah.
Yes, it's probably because he uses techniques like this and we don't.
Well, yeah.
You want to have scene transition every couple of seconds. So,
yeah,
but for me,
I don't
know.
Yeah.
For me, it just kind of short circuits my brain a little bit. But here, let's go on.
But not intelligible. This type of soundproofing is done to both eliminate distractions from outside the room, as well as ensure that multiple suspects being interrogated separately cannot overhear what the other is saying and alter their stories to match. To accomplish this, many guides recommend constructing walls using a mix of solid core concrete blocks and metal doors.
Is that so? For those of you that aren't watching this on video, you're going to have to watch this on video. But what we're looking at is a solid metal door that looks like it could be a door to a bunker. I'm not quite. Yeah. It looks like a blast
or
door,
bank vault or something. Yeah.
I mean, can you
That's
breathe in there? Is there circulation? Yeah. Now, maybe CIA, FBI, Alphabet, federal agencies could have something like this for a high-value detainee. But, I mean, at least in the Southeast, you're not going to find anything like this. You're going to find a closet that was converted into an interview room. That's what you're going to find. You're going to find shag carpet, chairs with wheels that have come off. I mean, it's nothing this fancy in most places.
That utilize soundproof gaskets and mechanical gap sealers. This way, even the gap between the base of the door and the floor is sealed to prevent sound escaping. On the walls above the suspects, at least 2 high-definition cameras are recommended for recording, as well as multiple high-quality microphones to capture both the interrogators and the suspects' voices without issue. These recordings are vital for ensuring the accuracy of the confession, and the turning off the cameras trope that is often seen in movies rarely happens anymore.
He is absolutely right on that part.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah, and a lot of people will actually have a body-worn camera. And I used to have my body-worn camera. If I got a call from the front desk that a suspect or subject was waiting for me in the lobby, I would activate my body-worn camera, walk up to the front, and I recorded every single second of that interaction. And the reason for that is that it protected the suspect and it protected me from liability, is what it did.
Right.
I mean, I had shown up to court numerous times And I've seen suspects say, "Oh, I was walking back and this officer said blah blah blah." And then the judge would say, "Oh, really?" And then the officer would say, "Well, actually, Your Honor, everything was recorded on body cam. Would the court like for me to play that?" So, body
Yeah.
cams protect everyone. Recording protects every single person involved.
In fact, interrogators want suspects to know that they're being recorded because this puts pressure on them to be truthful as to not earn a charge for making false or misleading statements.
The recording is not to put pressure on someone. The recording is to have an accurate record of what the investigator said, what the subject said. And also, in most law enforcement areas, it's required that they do record your interview and your interrogation. So,
And one other, yeah.
in fact, in the Reid technique, we also recommend that if you do have recording, if you are recording, you try to push the camera off to the side, not to be a distraction in that room.
Well, another thing too is like, of course, he has to say they tell you that you're being recorded to increase pressure. I would like to know, where did Simon, because that's a claim. Okay, Simon is making a claim right now, and I haven't seen a source cited to back up a claim like this. If I was writing a paper in college and I made an assertion like that, or an assertion like that, sorry, I cannot speak this morning, then the professor, when I turn the paper in and I get it back, would probably have a mark on that and say source, question mark, -5 points on the paper. So he's made an assertion. We haven't gotten a source for that. For the Reid technique of interviewing and interrogation, we do not recommend recording in order to increase psychological pressure. If somebody says that about us, they are lying or they have been just woefully misinformed. And as Dan said, there are certain states that require police to tell you that you are being recorded. The policy and procedures may dictate that the officer just has to tell you that. So
right, in some states it is just a one-party consent. In some states it's two-party consent.
Exactly, yes. So I mean, it's not a Jedi mind trick, okay?
Right.
Also, interrogators need to prove that any confessions rendered were not made under duress, so the cameras are rolling before the suspect even enters the room, and they keep rolling until the suspect has been returned to their cell.
So that is true. You want to keep everything going. You want to keep it recorded the entire time. Again, but it's to protect the suspect and the officer.
You know, it's a minor point here too, Frank, but I do want to point out that when you just said the suspect returned to a cell, you got to realize is that a lot of people that investigators are interviewing and talking to, recording, are not in custody, so they're not being returned to their cell. They're just leaving, they're going home, going back to their place of employment and that. So it's not all custodial situations in which this is being done.
Exactly, yes. And he's saying that a suspect is being drawn from their cell. Most of our interviews, most of our interrogations are people who just show up. I mean, very
the
rarely.
Investigator asks the person to come in, and they come in.
Yeah. But, I mean, there are some where you would go to a jail and you would get someone or they may be taken into custody, but yeah.
Absolutely.
For decorations, walls are barren, furniture is minimalistic, and an office-star color palette consisting of muted colors is recommended. This is done to further eliminate distractions and make it seem as if the interrogator is the only thing in the room for the suspect to look at or interact with.
So this right here is not totally inaccurate by Simon, but
no.
He is presenting it. If you listen to the music, we're into it sounds like a minor key. The pacing is slowing down. The lighting has changed. He's presenting it in this malevolent manner. And here's my take on that. Where else would you want to talk to someone about, a crime that could involve very intimate details? And something else is that if somebody applies for a job at Into the Shadows, is Simon going to interview that person outside on a park bench? How would Simon feel if he needed an executive assistant with his many, many channels, his many subjects of expertise, and the entire time he was doing an interview, that person was playing around on an iPad, asking him to repeat a question? they would take a phone call from a friend or family member. How would he feel about a job candidate like that? He's probably going to feel, well, hey, this person doesn't want to work here and they just don't want to answer my questions. I mean, so the way
There's
that
nothing
people,
wrong with the privacy aspect.
yeah,
That's the whole point.
and people forget that police interview, I mean, it's like a job interview. You want to be prepared. You want to have a room set up for it. I mean, there's nothing malevolent that goes on with this.
Right, and I think also in a lot of these videos that been watching over especially on the internet, it's not distinguished between the interview and the interrogation.
Yes,
and
yes.
I think we've in past podcasts pointed out the difference. What is an interview? What is an interrogation?
Exactly.
The suspect's chair should be slightly uncomfortable, bolted to the floor so it can't be moved or used as a weapon, and located against the wall.
What?
That's not true. That we in the Reid Technique we recommend. Now, other people say different. Whatever they're presenting, but in the Reid Technique, the chair should be a relatively comfortable chair for both the subject and the investigator. I do realize in some law enforcement agencies, chairs are bolted to the floor, not for any particular bad reason, but just as a safety measure so people that do become violent in there can't pick it up and use it as a weapon. So, but is slightly uncomfortable. That's not true for the Reid Technique.
It is absolutely not true, and it's not standard practice anywhere to just bolt a chair to a floor. So I would say that this is probably the second claim made by Simon where I don't see any source cited on this. I see nothing. Like, there's no, okay, where did you get this from?
At the door. This way, the officers can sit between the suspect and the door.
So now he's talking about the psychological pressure of having the subject sit in a corner and an officer sitting between the subject and the door. The only thing I'm going to say is that on day one of our seminars, we talk about room setup. We talk about the subject relative to the door, but it's not to increase psychological pressure. I don't know where Simon is getting this. We talk about custodial versus non-custodial. I'm not going to get into that here, into the legalese, but again, Simon, where are you getting that this is a psychological power trip?
Which subconsciously suggests that they are unable to leave the room without the interrogator's permission. By American law, suspects are allowed to leave whenever they please, and they're not obligated to speak to the police at any time, even when in custody, but interrogators don't want the suspects to think that. After reading them their Miranda rights, officers will do everything in their power to keep the suspect talking. Some guides that focus more on making the suspect comfortable say that they should be placed nearer the door to reduce stress, but this runs counter to how most interrogators prefer to run their room. Most want the mood in the room to feel heavy and restrictive, and they want their suspect...
I don't.
Who wants to do that? Who wants to do that, Simon?
And for what purpose?
I know, like what? Try and make... No, if you make the mood heavy and serious, that's going to work against you as an interviewer. That's not going to help your cause. I mean, you're going to have a much more difficult time of it if you do something like that. So this is the third thing that he said. No citation on it. So let's go on.
To feel as little sense of control as possible. Now, at the core of police interrogation is the tried and true Reid technique. It's
now we're getting to it. So this video...
We appreciate the plug, Simon.
That's right. So we are about a quarter of the way through this video, and now we're getting to the Reid technique. But we can already tell the build-up, right?
Yeah, I have a feeling that he's not going to endorse it.
Notice that the music has changed. It sounds more ominous now. There's a monster in the house, and we have to go inside the haunted house now. So
technique that is used in some capacity in nearly every single police department across the United States and Canada.
I don't know about Canada, but I know about the United States, and you're welcome.
Yeah,
yeah, you're welcome.
And that's for good reason. It is incredibly effective. Developed.
Okay, I agree with you, Simon. It is incredibly
effective.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, it is.
Perfected by John E. Reid in the 1950s, this technique...
Okay, you're right on that. It was perfected by John E. Reid in the 1950s.
But it hasn't. But it hasn't stayed as it was in the 1950s.
Exactly.
Obviously,
exactly.
in anything, and that's something about the Reid technique. You always need to evolve. You always need to improve. You change with the times. You change with the legal aspects. And Reid's has stayed on top of that throughout the many years that we have been teaching the Reid technique of interviewing and interrogation.
Yeah, I mean, at least every decade there's been a structural reform to the technique as data comes in, as the United States Supreme Court weighs in on certain cases. I mean, it's not like, John Reid in 1950 whatever, March the 3rd of blah, 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 like wrote this down on gold tablets. And I mean, it's like, it's in a constant state of subject to, information from reality. So
relies on a standardized set of instructions that helps interrogators acquire confessions while also making their interrogations sound like normal, fluid conversations. It relies heavily on body language analysis to know when a suspect is responding well to a line of questioning, and calls for the interrogator to remain non-judgmental and display patience even when confronting someone accused of a heinous crime.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
I am on board with this. So far, I'm liking it. I am willing to discard the claims that he made about interview rooms now. I'm just going to let them be neutral right now because so far he's doing a good job. All right. I'm liking this, Simon.
Once again, the concept of an angry, screaming detective is an outdated one.
Now, this is where, unfortunately, Simon is wrong. I'm former law enforcement. I've seen some seasoned, salty vets out there scream and yell at suspects, even to this day. Now, that's not a Reid technique. That's not any technique that's taught anywhere.
I mean, that's on YouTube's videos right now, where you can go and see the yelling, screaming,
they'll threaten, they'll promise leniency.
But that's not Reid.
Yeah. You'll have, unfortunately, I wish I could agree with Simon here, but unfortunately, it is just not a figment of the past.
With the Reid technique, we've always taught not to do that.
Exactly, yes. And that was one of the things that set John Reid apart in his day. He says, look, just because someone is I don't want to say the word and get us taken off of YouTube, but really, really bad person that does stuff to little people, don't lose your cool with them.
The investigator shouldn't let their true personal feelings affect them when doing interviews or interrogations.
Exactly, that's right.
Most interrogators prefer to present themselves as a friend, if done properly.
And again, I don't know about friend. You want to be cordial, polite, but not overly friendly with them. We don't teach to go in there and pretend that you're their best friend.
Go out to a bar and have
drinks
with them.
We don't do that.
We're professional. You'd be professional.
Yeah. I'm willing to give Simon some grace here. Maybe he means something, but hey, that's could be just some cherry picking.
I mean, if you treat people with decency and respect, I mean, what's wrong with that?
Exactly.
The technique allows an officer to slowly push a suspect from claiming innocence to admitting guilt over the course of just a few hours. It does this by slowly breaking down a suspect's resolve and boxing them into a confession.
So, what?
I'll tell you is that, first of all, again, you need to distinguish interviews from interrogations. Interviews typically may last, using the Reid behavioral analysis interview, that lasts approximately maybe 45 minutes in that.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Go on.
Lasts about 45 minutes, and that. Certainly interviews can be longer, depending on how much information you know about the case and need to clarify with the subjects. But on an average, I would be pretty safe in saying that a general interview would be 45 minutes, maybe to an hour, and not exceptionally long.
And this is one problem that I've encountered, Dan, when I'm selecting videos for us to do these reactions to.
Yeah.
Is that because the people haven't really studied our technique too well, they tend to conflate the interviews and the interrogations, and that just makes trying to unravel the ball of yarn that much more difficult. But let's go on with him. Let's see. Yeah.
How does the Reid technique actually work? Well, in total, it consists of 3 distinct phases: a pre-interview fact analysis, a behavior analysis interview, and lastly, the 9 steps of police interrogation.
So I would argue of the Reid technique of interviews and interrogations. Now, each of these steps are important, and each of them need to be weighed according to the context of your case. But as a formal criminal investigator, I think the pre-interview factual analysis is where that's where most of your work does. If you do an interview that's 45 minutes long, you do an interrogation that's 30 minutes long, I may have done a factual analysis, Dan, that could last days.
Well,
Interviewing witnesses,
right.
victims, analysis. That really the pre-interview is the most lengthy part of your investigation.
And Frank, too, in watching a lot of videos that critics will say, will bring up about being false confessions, at least from my standpoint, it has been where the reason for the false confession is not because Reid technique was used, is that because the investigator didn't do a proper either interview or didn't do the proper homework in investigating the case itself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yes. And I mean, almost every instance of false confessions out there is because there was a major mess up of the phase 1 factual analysis. They had evidence that the person they're talking to didn't actually do it, but they didn't process the evidence. They were rushing to conclusions. So, yeah.
And that's the thing is that we really stress is that the investigator should never be rushing to conclusions. And I just remember watching a video in which an individual was interrogated and actually confessed to killing his father, where it turned out the father was not even dead. The father was actually at an airport going to see his daughter. But how could the investigators ignore that piece of information? How could they presume the individual did something when they haven't even determined that a crime was committed?
Exactly. Yes, yes. I notice up here on this little slide he has behavioral analysis interview, and he's got the 9 steps and he has police interrogations, but it's just interrogation. So what I'm going to say is let's see what he says. So it looks like he may make a distinction between an interview and an interrogation.
Okay. Now, that might sound like a lot, and that's because it is, but stay with me. I'm going to explain how each step works, because the purpose of it...
Please do, Simon. Please do. You have 2 instructors watching you.
Each step is both fascinating and also pretty concerning. The first phase is as simple as it sounds, a pre-interview fact analysis. This simply means that interrogators need to have an extensive knowledge of the crime that they're investigating before they enter the room with their suspect.
And this is 80% of your training as a detective is your factual analysis. I mean, that's...
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
mean, that's the vast majority of your work.
I mean, right.
This way, while executing the rest of the Reid technique, they can quickly identify when something their suspect claims is not consistent with the facts of the case. The second phase
no, that's not the only reason. You don't do a phase analysis to try and trick someone up. You do a phase analysis to decide, okay, sorry, it sounds like there could be some severe weather coming this way. You do a factual analysis to determine, hey, who do I need to interview? What makes this person a suspect? What makes this person a victim? What makes this person a witness? Because what happens a lot of times is that even if you find the person who committed the robbery, they give you an independently verified confession that was obtained legally and ethically. The detective might have to take the stand and articulate, hey, why did you believe the victim? Why did you believe the witness? What evidence was there? So the factual analysis really is the background code that's running that drives the other 2 phases of the Reid technique. It never goes away. You're constantly evaluating that initial factual analysis based on information that you've gotten from the interview and also based on information that you get from, the interrogation. So there's a constant self-assessment that goes, all roads don't point to the confession. They actually point to that phase 1, the all-important factual analysis.
the first to directly involve the suspect, and it's known as a behavioral analysis interview. This is a process where officers will take time to sit with the suspect and ask a series of preliminary and non-accusatory questions that are unrelated to the crime in question. They'll ask for their name, their birthday, where they work, what they like to do in their off hours, and so on and so forth. This is done to put a suspect at ease and
Okay, so wait. Let me keep playing it here.
observe how they naturally answer questions and establish what is known as their baseline behavior.
Now, he is doing something, Dan, that a lot of our critics do, okay? He mentions the factual analysis, but part of the factual analysis, Dan, as you know, I mean, you've been with Reid for 50,000 years here, but it is to determine the suitability of the subject to even be questioned. And when you get a subject in front of you, you don't immediately start asking them baseline questions. You're also doing a very short questionnaire that is the suitability for the interview.
And those questions, Frank, absolutely are going to be is that some of them, certainly, how much sleep have you had?
Exactly, yes.
Do you take medication? What's that for? Did you take it today? Have you had anything to eat, drink? Just making sure that the person is going to be suitable for an interview.
And not only that, but if you did a factual analysis and you have a subject who, let's say they're 13, 14, 15, or 16, 17 years old, you would approach your behavioral analysis interview radically different and with 10 times the amount of safeguards in it than you would somebody who's 40 years old. And
Correct.
You assess what's their basic understanding, level of intelligence, their maturity, their emotional state, their mental state, their physical state. You determine all of this, not only in the factual analysis, but in the very beginning of the interview. And Simon might not be...
Right, and that's going to, because that's going to be determining, too, is what the person telling us true? Are they capable of understanding reality? Is it something where it's just an opinion that they have? So these are things that the investigator needs to assess at the very beginning and through this, as we call it, baseline behavior. But investigators need to spend time in this area so they're comfortable that the subject is going to be suitable for an interview.
Behavior. By comparing their baseline behavior during these simple questions to the behaviors they display during more serious lines of questioning, officers can more accurately detect deception than they could in the past. But we'll talk more about the problem with deception detection in a later section. After the suspect appears to be growing comfortable and the officers feel...
Okay, so I said earlier in the video, Dan, I was glad that he's not using AI videos. I would much rather have clips from movies.
Really?
Yeah, now we have the first AI image that popped up here. This is definitely AI. Let's just take a real brief look at this. First of all, if I was doing the prompts for the AI video, I would not be advising my FBI agent to have FBI displayed all over his jacket. That's not a real jacket. They wouldn't be wearing a baseball cap like that. I mean, I don't know what kind of table setup. And then it looks like, does the suspect have some whiskey? What is that? Like little dark...
And a cigarette, I think.
Yeah, smoking a cigarette in there. So AI video prompt in here, but whatever. Hey, it is what it is. We're probably going to be seeing more and more of this stuff.
that they have observed them long enough to recognize changes in their behavior. They'll then ask the suspect to give a recollection of their side of the story. Officers will take careful mental notes of any inconsistencies or possible lies that they notice along the way. However, throughout this phase, they'll also keep their cards close to their chest and refrain from calling out any information that they know to be false.
Well, that's pretty accurate. You don't want to, if someone's lying to you, call them a liar right there on the spot. I mean, that wouldn't be a nice thing to do.
Right. I mean, we don't in the interview, we don't point out their deception. So it's, we're letting them talk.
Exactly.
They're answering our questions.
100%.
Want to lock the suspect into a story so that later they can challenge the lies more effectively.
You're not trying to lock them into anything. You're just asking them what their side of the story is.
Correct.
At any point in the interview, they can change their story and say, well...
And that happens.
Yeah, well, officer, I know I said I was at Joe's house, but what I didn't want to tell you is that I was actually at my best friend's house and we were smoking pot, and I didn't want to tell my wife I was smoking pot. You'll get like little, I call them innocent lies. Like they're not meant to like hurt anyone, but they were doing something that they just don't want someone to know about. It doesn't mean because someone lies to you, it doesn't mean that they actually committed the crime. I mean, innocent people lie all the time. I mean, it's just
And
yeah,
it may not even be a lie.
exactly.
As we see in interviews that we do, is that sometimes the more a person thinks about the issue under investigation that they're being talked to, they remember things, they correct themselves. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I mean,
what
you'll
you
remember
generally
additional
expect
things.
from
Yeah.
a truthful person.
Mm-hmm.
There shouldn't
And
be
what's that?
Exactly. Yeah.
there shouldn't be just a from if they talk to him on day one and just get some preliminary information. Now they're talking to him a week later. That story should not exactly match up what they told him on day one, because a normal person again is replaying the issue that they're being questioned about, and again, it's normal. They remember this stuff, change stuff around. They're trying to be helpful many times in the investigation by correcting stuff, and investigators shouldn't look at that as trying to be deceptive.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's finished. It's time for the final and the most extensive phase to begin, the Reid Technique's 9 steps of interrogation.
Okay. Well, so I would say he was probably 60% accurate describing a behavioral analysis interview. What do you think?
Well,
What do you?
well,
Not that I
yeah,
can make it
and I think here's
mathematical.
what I think. Here's what I think too. There is a misconception again about the Reid technique. The investigator listens to the person's story, and during that story, they're making mental notes or written notes about things that might be inconsistent, determining when they're lying about something, but the Reid technique at the behavioral analysis interview also consists of approximately 17 questions that are specifically designed to draw out from people both verbal, nonverbal behavior more indicative of truth or deception. I can see where if an investigator just sits down and I say to you, Frank, tell me what happened on that particular night, and you go through your story. I may not be totally convinced that I believe you, or I couldn't say that you're lying to me. I couldn't say it's 100% true. Just hearing your version of it, the investigator needs to ask questions to elicit information, and based on how they respond to those questions, especially in the behavioral analysis interview, that's helping us make a determination: are they being completely truthful with us or not?
And just because someone's untruthful or deceptive, it doesn't mean that they actually committed the crime.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's why we do an interview. Yeah.
And you got to look at what questions is the investigator asking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that isn't really played out in a lot of these videos about people criticizing the Reid technique. They just think, well, they're sitting down telling their story and coming up with an opinion that they're lying. No, that's not how it works.
Exactly. Yes. So I say let's go on. I think he's going to describe the 9 steps here.
And this is a process that, if done correctly, is extremely effective at securing a confession. However, it's also the riskiest part of the interrogation. According to the Reid Technique's website, these steps should only be attempted if the police are reasonably certain of the suspect's involvement in the issue under investigation.
So they know about our website. So I'm assuming they know about our courses, our books, and some other information out there, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we should be getting a fair rendition of the 9 steps of interrogation then. That's what I'm looking for from
and
here.
what he's set up to this point is
It's
totally
not too
accurate
bad. Yeah,
so far.
yeah.
Right.
Let's see what he's got.
This is because these steps are so persuasive that they often cause innocent people to confess to crimes they did not commit.
Where do they get this from? And there's our red flag right there on Simon. They're so persuasive, they cause innocent people to confess. I mean, where is he getting this from? If you go in
Right.
there and you commit police misconduct on me, you could probably get me to confess to a crime that I didn't do. But this goes back to an analogy that I keep going back to. Just because someone trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they break into someone's home and they incapacitate the homeowner through the techniques that they use in BJJ, it doesn't mean that BJJ is wrong. It means that somebody abused the system. Because drunk drivers drive on the opposite sides of the highway, should you ban cars? I mean, and where's he getting the data that the Reid technique itself is causing false confessions?
I think it would be safe to say, too, Frank, in examining, and in future podcasts, we are going to be having Joe Buckley, president of John Reid and Associates, on our podcast to address certain areas about false confessions. But I think right now, if you look at a lot of these false confessions that are obtained, the investigator is not using the Reid technique. And that's, I think, what needs to be clarified with people, and that's the issue that I have with a lot of criticisms that people give us, is that you look at it, it's not the Reid technique. So,
but it looks like the Reid it's Reid-like, Dan. It's like the Reid technique, Dan. Come on.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see what
makes
he does.
it like the Reid technique. I want to know.
Yeah. So he said 9 steps, correct?
Let's hear him. Yeah.
All right. So let's see what kind of 9 steps he's got for us.
Something else that we're going to be focusing on in the next section. However, for now, let's start with the first of the 9 steps, the positive confrontation. This is when the interrogator first reveals to a suspect that they have evidence of their involvement in the crime that they're discussing. This step is oftentimes also referred to as the accusation, and it's usually
Okay. The accusation. I'm wondering if he is. I wonder what's going on with this.
Well, yeah.
What is step 1? What is step 1?
One is in the Reid 9 steps is our direct positive, where we tell the individual that we believe them to be the ones who have been involved in committing the crime. Also, there's an alternative approach to step 1 where it's not just a blatant accusation. The investigator can certainly say is that based on the results of the investigation, it indicates you haven't told us the complete truth about this. That's how the interrogation generally starts out. You need to explain to the person why you're talking to him at this point.
Yes, and we don't call it the accusation. We just call it direct positive confrontation. There's 2 different variations that you can use, but let's go on. Let's see what else we've got.
usually met with a quick denial from the suspect. Then, depending on the circumstances of the case and whether or not it benefits them, officers may present evidence of the suspect's guilt.
Just one thing, too, Frank, I would say is that often he said met with a quick denial. In my experience with step 1, advising them that they did do it, I would say probably a good third, or if not close to half of the people, don't say anything.
Yeah,
they don't deny it. Or if they do say something, a lot of times their response is going to be, what? What did you say? You think it's me? Why would you say that? I'm not saying they never do deny, but it's not as frequent as a lot of people would think.
Exactly.
Or they may simply allude to the evidence. The second step is known as theme development, and this is when the officer...
Hey, at least he's labeling the steps correctly.
Correct.
Well,
yeah,
kind of correctly.
Yeah.
He labeled step 2 correctly, theme development.
That's right.
Yeah.
begins to offer a morally justifiable reason for why the crime in question may have occurred. The officer may place blame on another person, sometimes even the victim, and will continue to display a sympathetic attitude toward the suspect. This justification is delivered as a monologic narrative that...
Monologic narrative. I like that.
Well, that's
term.
a
monologic.
Is that a word? Did he just invent? Is that an English word or?
I'm going to trust Simon on this.
Yeah, he sounds convincing in it.
Does,
you know,
monologic narrative. So far, what do you think of his presentation on that? I don't really have a problem with what he said.
No, I just want to say too is that with theme development, the investigator is not just simply creating a narrative that he thinks is going to be easy for the subject to admit to. The theme is going to be based on what possible motives the person may have had in committing the crime.
Exactly.
And that's what people fail again to think. We just pick these ideas out of thin air. No. Themes are following the facts and evidence that you might have in the case, what caused the individual to do what they did. If we believe it's alcohol related, then it's going to be the theme may go along the alcohol related idea. If it's a situation where it's believed that maybe the individual was talked into it by someone else or prompted by either friends or let's say other gang members to commit the crime, the theme is going to go along those lines. It's not fabricating ideas.
Exactly, yes.
Paints the suspect in a positive light and allows them to begin considering whether they can change their story to satisfy the officer while also continuing to appear innocent. You've probably seen this in movies.
The subject is not satisfying anything. I mean, we're talking to him to obtain the truth.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff being snuck in here, packaged in here. Like, a lot of these Reid critics, they have these presuppositions that they never prove, but they'll sneak into their critique of the Reid technique itself.
Officer might say something like, but he had it coming, right? He was a bad guy. You were just trying to protect your friends. The third step...
So here's the thing, Simon, and I'm not sure if Simon has ever conducted an interview and interrogation of a suspect.
That's a good point, Frank. Yeah.
That is what criminals tell themselves the next day after they committed a crime. He was a bad guy. He had it coming. Blah, blah, blah. You know, the boss is rich. The company's not going to miss the money. I was selling to adults. I wasn't selling to kids. All we're doing in theme development is we are verbally articulating their own justifications and rationalizations. Like, we're not brainwashing, we're not breaking you down, we're verbalizing what they are already telling themselves. That's what themes are. Yeah.
And themes are based on, again, what people have told us their rationale, their reasoning was in committing the crime. And I go back to your theme is going to be centered in on what the facts and circumstances of the crime are. We're not just there to make it easy for the person to admit it. We want the truth. And the truth is going to be based on, based on our themes, the facts and evidence of the case.
Exactly.
Involves rejecting denials, and it simply states that any denial of guilt from this point...
So step 3, overcoming denials. You could also use rejecting denials, but when critics go over the 9 steps, our 9 steps are found online. They're found on our website. Our president and CEO, Joe Buckley, has videos on the 9 steps. You can get the accurate terminology that we use at John Reid and Associates. And I don't understand why these critics will go over the 9 steps and they label them as something else. And it may seem like I'm nitpicking here, but I mean, that's like calling...
It should be right.
I mean, that's like saying a Honda Civic, is a Honda Accord. I mean, technically you have the right make, but you have the wrong model here. So, I mean, and I want to listen to these critics. What they say is actually very important to me. I want to know if there's something going on with our technique that could harm somebody or have a bad outcome. But when somebody displays this mislabeling of our steps, it makes me clouded in my judgment and everything else that they're saying. Because then when they don't back up what they're saying with the source cited, I can't just take them at their word for it.
And you got a good point, Frank, is that if you're familiar with, if you're going to critique the Reid technique, if you're familiar with our website, if you're familiar with our literature, You should be using the correct terminology, just not making up what the step is.
Exactly, yes. And one of the most frustrating things about doing these videos is that I feel like I could sum up our critics' view of the Reid technique, and it would be within 95% accuracy of what they actually believe about us. Now, they may add some nuance here or there, but if I were to ask them to sum up what the Reid technique is, they would just be way off base. Like, they couldn't even accurately describe it. But I'm just going to give them this, rejecting denials, even though that's not our term for it. Let's just see how we handle step 3.
On should be decisively rejected by the officer. If a suspect claims that they didn't commit the crime, the officer should immediately say something like, "Let's not deny this anymore." Or, "Oh, we've moved past that already. It's time to acknowledge what you've done." For those who are guilty, these objections will slowly become fewer as officers whittle away at their confidence.
So you're not whittling away at somebody's confidence. This is where, in logic, in debate, in rhetoric, there's such a thing as called a presupposition. That is a premise that's being snuck into an argument that is unproven. And the presupposition that's going on with Simon right here is that the whole point of an interrogation is to destroy somebody's confidence. It's not. It's to get the person comfortable enough to tell you what really happened. That's really what it is, what it boils down to. And, okay, Simon, if you have somebody who you know robbed a bank, but let's suppose that you can't show the video in court because it was fruit of the poisonous tree out of a search warrant. Something was screwed up in the return. So you can't use that against the person. You ask the person if they did it. They tell you no. What do you do, Simon? What would you do? How would you overcome their denials?
Right.
Would you buy them a cheeseburger and talk about something unknown? I mean, it's just,
we have given them the opportunity also in our behavioral analysis interview to deny it. This is not the first time that they have. In the interview, we're never stopping their denials. They can deny all they want in an interview. They can talk all they want. They can explain to us how and why they wouldn't have done something like this in the interview, and we let that be voiced. Now it's in the interrogation phase here where we're trying to limit the amount of denials that people give us. I'll tell you this from my experience, it's nearly impossible to stop every single denial that a person gives you. But we do find is that if you're able to stop a lot of their interruptions, is that you'll move forward in that interrogation.
Exactly.
But the Reid Technique website also states that any innocent person will likely refuse to move past this step and will continue to deny their involvement. This is considered a safeguard against false confession. However,
it's one of the many, many, many safeguards against a false confession during an interrogation. And I feel like you're going to choose one of our safety rails and critique it and deconstruct it. At least bring up everything else. But I don't know if Simon is going to do that.
Yeah, and not everybody that is guilty of a crime that is being interrogated is going to admit their guilt. I mean, there are many times in my long career, Frank, and I'm sure in yours, where you have interrogated a deceptive individual and you haven't been able to move past their denials. And it just comes a point where if they continue to deny, then what are you going to do next? Is that you may have to terminate the interrogation.
Yeah, exactly.
This belief is not at all accurate. The fourth step.
So we made, so this is another claim. And this isn't even a presupposition. This is so far he hasn't substantiated it, but he said essentially that someone that didn't commit the crime, their denials will be less and less. This is one of our safeguards against false confession. And he says this isn't accurate. Okay, what I think he's going to do is just leave that hanging and not back it up with any kind of evidence. Like, we need evidence that what we are doing is not going to work at this point. And this is what a lot of critics do. They'll sneak in presuppositions that are assumed and not proven. They will, yeah,
absolutely. I totally agree with you, Frank.
And they'll make claims without backing up anything that they're saying. And the only way that you could substantiate a claim, there's two ways to do it. You could verify or falsify a claim like this, is A, you do 100 experiments with real criminals, not these little test lab human rats that are 18 and 19-year-old undergrads, right? But real criminals who have committed real crimes. You verify that they've committed a crime and use our 9 steps on them. Okay, and see if the behavior that we articulate is present in these controlled environments. If so, then guess what? We are verified. If not, then we are falsified. Period, end of story.
Right.
But so far, I'm not aware of any of our critics running or funding a study like this. So let's move on here. Yeah.
Is to appropriately overcome objections. This step works together with the previous step and involves taking into account the objections that a suspect may offer to prove their innocence.
Okay, so far, he's sneaking in presupposition. He's doing some sneaky little debate tactics, but that's Simon for you. That's okay. That's why I like him. That's why I watch his stuff. So far, I'll give him a C+ on the 9 steps. I'll give him a C+ on it. I'll give him a C+. He did articulate step 4. So far, that's something I haven't seen one of our critics do. So we'll see what he says.
Suspects may say things like, I wouldn't kill her because I love her, or what reason would I have to commit this crime? It is noted that these...
You hear that stuff as a side note all the time.
Yes.
Frank, hold on a second. There's no way I would do this. Oh, yeah, why is that, Joey? Because I love her. Because I'll never hurt a child. Because I'm rich. Because this or that. And here's the thing about it. If you, as the interrogator, if you have evidence that this person committed the crime, if all the case analysis points to them, if your interview points to that person as having committed the crime, you need a way to properly overcome their objection. Because if you don't, then every time they bring up the objection and you act like you didn't hear it, you talk over it, if you treat it like a denial, it's going to be the equivalent if they were just laying down a layer of brick. And if they see that you didn't address it, they're going to lay down another layer of brick, and pretty soon they will have built a wall, and you're just not going to get past that person.
And,
so you have to overcome
objections
those.
too.
Yeah.
They normally do contain some element of truth, but when they do object, it's not a denial to actually committing the act.
Exactly.
It's an excuse why they wouldn't do it, and that's why, as Frank has mentioned here, is that generally we want to agree with it. I'm glad you said that. I hope that's true.
Exactly. Yes. So we'll see how he does it.
Objections should not be outright dismissed.
Okay. I'll give you a green check mark for that, Simon.
Yes.
The way a denial should be, and instead should be incorporated into the interrogator's narrative to further strengthen it.
Join us, Simon. Join us.
Come
I
over
see
to
the
our side,
potential
yes.
for a good instructor, a good interrogator, Simon. I know there had to be a reason you chose this. Come on, join us. Good. Your fleet is lost. Your friends on the moon of Endor will not survive.
Okay. Yeah.
For instance, if a person does claim that love would have prevented them from killing their significant other, then the officer may suggest that a known prior affair was the justification. How well an officer can do this on the fly depends greatly on their skill as an interrogator.
So I agree with what he's saying. I disagree with the presupposition that it depends on your skill as an interrogator. What I teach the seminars is this. To get good at overcoming denials, overcoming objections, step 3 and step 4, as well as step 2, especially third-person themes, you have to practice it. Practice talking to yourself. 10 times better than a VR headset. A VR headset outsources your cognitive, active role in decision making, and it puts you in a passive state. That's why I don't like them. Sit down, imagine the person is saying this to you. Imagine what your response is going to be. Keep it short, keep it pithy. What I tell the attendees at the seminar is you have to have muscle memory. When you go up to qualify with your pistol and you do a combat reload, you have muscle memory down of clearing the chamber, releasing the mag, dropping in another mag, rack tap and ready, and boom, boom, boom. That is muscle memory. What you have to have is muscle memory for step 3 and step 4. You don't, Simon is right, but the skill to get to that level is just repetition. Talk to yourself, read the books, look over your notes, watch our YouTube channel, but you need to condition yourself to automatically respond to a denial, automatically respond to an objection.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things, too, in the Reid technique, in our behavioral analysis interview, we say investigators can prepare themselves to anticipate what an excuse might be the subject may give in the interrogation. And one of the questions, how they do that is, one of the questions in our interview is we ask the person, tell me why you wouldn't do this. That's one of the waaaay questions. If they mention to you in the interview, well, I wouldn't do it, I love my wife. Or I wouldn't take the money, why? Because I have a lot of money in my bank account. If that doesn't mean they're deceptive at all by hearing that statement, but if you do interrogate that person because they are deceptive, you can anticipate that you can hear that same excuse in the interrogation. But since they mentioned it to you in the interview, now the investigator can prepare. Okay, if I hear that same excuse again later on in the interrogation, here's what I may say to try to counter it.
Exactly, yes.
The fifth step involves displaying sincerity, and it is triggered when a suspect begins to show signs.
Okay, wait a minute. He's kind of lost me here on step 5. Display sincerity.
That's throughout the whole interrogation.
Well,
you're sincere.
What is the proper nomenclature for step 5?
Procurement, retention of the subject's attention.
Exactly.
In other words, what that means is that they're becoming more withdrawn, and you're trying to focus their attention not so much on what they're thinking, many times maybe of the consequences of admitting their guilt, but more or less on what you're saying.
Exactly, yes. And what that tells me is that Simon, mislabeling step 5. So let's see what he says. I'm sorry. At this point, I just want to stop the video. It is so bad to mislabel step 5. Let's see
of regret or remorse for their actions. During this step, interrogators should begin working to develop an even closer connection with the suspect.
Where is he getting this? What is he talking about? This is not step 5, Simon. You are way off base. Do you know... Wait. Do you know what this sounds like? Kind of like? Dan?
What's that, Frank?
That kind of sounds like step 4 of positive persuasion. Our 7-step program for child abuse and administrative and type of investigations. But that's not part of our 9-step. Yeah, that's not part of our 9-step protocol, though. So I'm not sure if Simon was researching this as writers or whoever it is, but you fellas are way off base on this.
So that they will be more likely to divulge their confession.
Not 9 steps, not step 5.
To do this, officers will sometimes move their chair closer to the suspect, lower their voice, or place...
So what are we looking at here? We're looking at an AI video of looks like a white female with tattoos on her chest, brown hair. Looks like the officer is putting
in
a
handcuffs
cigarette.
Too. Let's not forget that.
Well, those aren't handcuffs; those are shackles.
Oh, yeah, the chains.
Those are shackles, and it looks like there is a metal briefcase open with dope in it and pills, and it looks like a fedora is on the table. Yeah. Simon, whoever's doing your prompting, what did you use? Instagram
Let's hope
AI?
It's a cigarette. Let's hope it's not drugs.
I know. It looks like
Who knows?
And just this whole AI thing is weird. Like F on the AI video here. And the thing about it is Into the Shadows is such a good channel. I like it. But I feel like the channel is not being well served by this slop AI right here. This is just slop, guys. Come on. There we go.
A comforting hand on the suspect's shoulder if the officer has managed to construct.
No, you don't. You're not making physical contact with anybody. What is he talking about?
In today's
you don't make
society,
physical contact.
Reid teaches that we do not touch a subject in the interrogation. We don't touch him in the interview. Don't touch him in the interrogation.
Exactly.
A believable justification that works in favor of the suspect, this will be a powerful motivator for confession, as the suspect will now believe that the officer...
So now we've got the AI slop video again. It's zooming in on this AI female's face. This is creepy. What is she, a vampire? What's wrong? I mean, what is going on with this?
I still want. She's smiling in there. I wonder what that cigarette contained, Frank.
I know. Yeah, what's going on?
Is on their side. If the suspect brings up the possible consequences of their actions, the Reid Technique states that these should be minimized immediately to keep focus on that moment and off of the future.
Well, because you don't. Yeah, go on.
We're not minimizing the consequences. And the impression that he gives is that an investigator is saying, well, if you admit it, you might, you may not go to jail, you may not lose your job, or that. In no way do we make any promises, do we make any threats. We're not the one, and the investigator is not the one to determine what is going to happen to that particular individual.
Exactly, yes. I mean, it's... I don't know what to say. I mean, what do you say, Dan, when the critic is so far off base that they're saying 2 + 2 = 5? How do you even respond to this? For the people who are watching, if you are unfamiliar with the Reid technique, we do not teach this. We do not teach this at all. I gave Simon a C+. Now I'm gonna have to give him a D. Let's see what I want him to pass, though. Maybe he'll bring this up. Let's just pretend that step 5 and just doesn't exist.
The 6th step begins when, after step 5, the suspect still appears remorseful but has not yet rendered a confession.
Okay, at least he got the label somewhat right on step 6.
Right.
Maybe we were confused a little bit.
This one simply states that the officer should re-establish their suggested justification for the crime while also offering up alternative reasons that the suspect may instead latch onto.
Step 6, for those of you who are using the Reid technique, it's really more of an observation.
Correct.
I mean, we do have a protocol in there, but it's really just more of an observation, just making a judgment call of, hey, is this person ready for the alternative question?
Are they coming defeated, accepting what we're saying?
Verbal agreement statements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that during each of these steps, officers are continuing to watch for behavioral cues that indicate when a suspect is being receptive to what the officer.
And again, we've got another, I'm not sure if this is AI or not. It's a little bit better than that creepy girl in the room with the guy putting this phallic-shaped object in her mouth. But now we're in a, I don't know if this is an interview. Is this person talking to a news reporter? What is this?
Officer is saying. If the suspect begins to show greater emotion during this step, or if the suspect begins...
As a side note, I wonder if Simon's team is using Final Cut Pro for their edits, because I noticed a bunch of the scene transition and lighting is exactly like the settings I have in Final Cut Pro. I would be really curious about that. So,
to cry, the Reid technique states that the officer should infer guilt. The 7th step.
Where does it say we infer guilt? You should infer guilt at step 6?
No.
Did I miss that somewhere?
No, I've never heard that before.
So this is a point where if you watch this, Simon, and I doubt you will, I mean, you've got millions and millions of subscribers. We've got less than 200 at this point. But Simon, excuse me, if you do see our video, I think your position would be helped if you cited where you are making these observations and conclusions, because it's not in our workbooks. I mean, I can say it's not in our videos. Like, how are you coming up with this?
Is to present an alternate question. If at this point the suspect is still not
Okay, step 7, you did get the label. All right, I'm rocking and rolling.
best, the interview will likely be stretching into its 3rd or 4th hour.
What? Wait, what? 3rd or 4th hour? What kind of interrogation's that? There's something going south real quick.
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to our average time in an interrogation of all the thousands that have been done is probably, I'd say, an average of about 45 minutes to an hour. Many of them even quicker than that.
It's rare. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not unheard of.
Right, and a lot of times what may cause, if you will, what they call an interrogation to last several hours has been that The investigator has done the interview. That's part of the time, then into the interrogation. But what we find is that one of the things that causes interrogations to last a long time is that when the interviewer is combining the interview with the interrogation. You're asking questions, challenging, going back and forth on that. That's making the investigator's job much more difficult, more confusing.
Not only that,
Make it easy.
Yeah, there is no national database that records interrogation time. There's no national database that records when people offer the alternative question. So again, this isn't even a presupposition. I'm trying to think what this is. This is just this is a claim with no backing whatsoever. Third or fourth hour, give me a break. Come on.
Officers should present two choices, one of which will paint the suspect in a more positive light. However, neither should absolve the suspect of guilt. Instead, both should inherently infer guilt. For instance, officers might say something like, "Did you go there planning to kill them, or did it happen in the heat of the moment?"
Planned versus unplanned, spur of the moment versus planned out.
But the alternatives are based on what the investigator's case facts and evidence have revealed for him. Is that if I was interrogating somebody about a premeditated murder, I'm never going to use an alternative. Did you plan it out, or did it happen on the spur of the moment? Because I don't believe that's what occurred. You're not just trying to get him to admit it. You're trying to get to the truth.
Exactly.
This is a powerful means of persuasion that further removes the idea of innocence from the equation. And
well, here's the thing, Simon. At what point? So Simon, let's assume that you have a magic wand. You are in control of all interrogations in the United States. At what point should the investigator assume the person actually did it? Like, they have this idea that because the investigator, the detective, thinks somebody committed a crime, that the entire investigation is biased. So what if I, as an interrogator, think someone went into a house and murdered an entire family? If I have evidence for this, facts for this, if I've made inductive and deductive logical conclusions to lead me to a probability that this person did it, so what if I think they did it during an interrogation? Of course. I mean, you wouldn't interrogate somebody who you thought didn't do it. So
Correct.
So what if that person who's doing the interrogation thinks that they're not innocent? Why is that a negative? Why is that a negative? And people who say stuff like this typically have never interrogated a suspect.
Yeah, exactly, Frank. And the whole premise of the interrogation is that the investigator believes, based on facts, evidence, in the interview, that the person did do it.
Exactly, yes. I mean, so investigators out there, it's okay if you assume that the person did it, if that is the conclusion you came to through your investigation.
Suspect to consider the implications of two different confessions as opposed to simply denying one. The former seems more sinister at first glance. However, agreeing to either would be an admission of guilt. This is
Correct.
the point where most suspects begin to crack and consider accepting.
Yes, I mean, yes, that's the whole point, Simon. I mean, that's the alternative question, but here, let's see.
The less of two evils. The eighth step starts once the suspect begins to show signs they've accepted their guilt and are on the verge of admitting it. At this point, the officer will then begin to put.
So, can you at least give us the label of step 8?
Well, even before that, one other thing that I want to address, going back to the alternatives, is that the lesser of two evils is not the lesser of two evils, it's what the truth is in why this person did what they did. It's not just we're throwing out something hoping that they're going to bite on that. No, it's what we believe to be the truth.
Exactly, yes.
Push for an oral admission of guilt, which simply means that they want the suspect to definitively admit their guilt out loud for the cameras and microphone to capture.
Dun dun dun, dun dun dun. Oh no, they want them to articulate what they did. Dun dun dun.
And explain the details of how they went about committing the act. Yeah, you want that because that's helping establish
That's getting to the truth because
the validity of the confession.
And you know, I know that critics out there don't think that the purpose of us is to get to the truth, but you may believe that someone committed a crime and they did commit the crime, but in their confession they let you know that, hey, they actually had an accomplice. That's the truth. And you later expand the scope of your investigation. You don't know the truth because you weren't there. That's the whole point of trying to get them, you know, to elicit the truth out of them.
So, will make retracting this admission in the future much more difficult. After a suspect has admitted that they are responsible, officers will then ask them to retell.
And this is an emotional ploy on the part of this video. The video went to a split screen. You have a subject over here on my right-hand panel, and he's rubbing his head. He's looking like all distraught. He has a little
standing up there.
Yeah, you have the police badge in the background, and Simon is playing on your heartstrings right now. He's playing on your heartstrings. He's trying to elicit emotional sympathy. This is a logical fallacy, an appeal to the emotions instead of logic.
Right? Is he trying to infer that the person didn't do it or that they did? What is he against? That's my
Exactly.
Is he against?
Like, what is he against? Yeah, I know.
Tell the story from the beginning. Only this time they want them to include the new details that they've just confessed to.
Yes. Give us the
helping
details.
establish the validity of the confession.
Okay. Yeah.
They want a clean confession from start to finish. But instead of letting the suspect speak uninterrupted like they did during the initial story, they will often interject to ask clarifying questions.
You have to do this, Mr. Simon, who's probably never interrogated someone. If you have, let's say, a rapist, and that rapist says, yeah, I did it, I had sex with her against her will, and then if you just say, okay, tell me what happened, they'll tell you what they had for breakfast for 30 minutes, they'll tell you what color their shoes were for 15 minutes, and then they'll simply skip over the actual heinous act that they perpetrated. If you just let a suspect talk, they'll talk about anything except what they actually did.
Right.
But, hey, you're not going to know that unless you actually did it.
Have you ever heard the term get to the point? And the whole idea is that, as you said, Frank, is that the investigator needs to ask the questions so the subject will give details about what they did.
Exactly.
We're not feeding him information. We're not.
Yeah.
We're not
well,
telling
that's where
him.
he's going. I have a feeling that's where he's going.
And in fact, that's where again the false confessions come in. Rightly so, where the investigator feeds the suspect, I should say, the answers to the questions. And in the Reid technique, you never do that. You would never say, now, after you shot them, is that you threw the gun in the woods. Is that correct? Behind the house? Yeah. And you went over there Tuesday night at about 6 o'clock? Yeah. You're letting them tell you, what did you do with the weapon?
You're asking open-ended questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Open-ended questions.
But you're keeping them on point.
Exactly.
When they start talking about what they had for breakfast that morning, no relevance, you say, okay, that's nice, but tell me, what did you do after you went into the house? Yeah.
To make sure the details are well documented and uncover any additional evidence that can be used against them. The ninth and final step.
Any additional evidence.
Convert the oral confession into a written one. Now the hard work is done, but to make the confession easier to present at trial, officers will then give the suspect...
Yeah, so I would like to say that if you are watching this, step 9, converting the oral confession into a written confession, it's going to be making a comeback. Like a plague that we had once thought that we had exterminated. With the advent of AI in these videos, they're going to get so good that eventually the only way to tell if a videotape confession is legitimate, original, and hasn't been altered at the source code is by another AI agent interpreting it. And that's going to be bad.
You bring up a good point, is that right now with AI, I wonder, has that been brought up in court already?
It has already, yes. Axon body-worn cameras, they came out with this, and I think this was not the best call on Axon's part, but they came up with an AI agent that would assist officers in writing their reports based on data scraping recorded images off of their body cams. The ACLU has already written a brief, or they've already challenged it. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Axon is not backing down, though, so it's, Now, I'm not a lawyer, but already Axon is saying, look, it doesn't write the report, it assists them. But what the ACLU is saying, it's writing a majority of police officers' reports. Therefore, how can police officers swear in on these police reports? And so
Right, and
it's already, and
right.
I could see happening, Dan, recorded interviews and interrogations, confessions going the way of the polygraph because of AGI. Or if we get to AGI, God forbid. But if AI continues to advance at the pace that it is, I could see a lot of our digital evidence just going the way of the polygraph.
A good defense attorney bringing up the possibility that it is AI generated. This
exactly
whole idea of this, and again, is that you're swaying. These are jurors that they're swaying in there, and causing that reasonable doubt.
Yes.
A confession form to fill out in their own words. They encourage the suspect to be thorough and offer apologies to the victims' families. These forms can also be used to...
There's nothing wrong with the individual apologizing to the victim's family. Isn't that, that happens in court now when the person's brought in after they've been convicted.
Establish that a suspect is fit
to the family.
Exactly, yeah.
To stand trial by proving that they're mentally capable of understanding the consequences of their actions. So, as I've been alluding to throughout...
So what's wrong with this, Simon? Like, what's your beef? Okay, I'll give Simon I'll give him a C- for describing the Reid technique, even though he absolutely torpedoed the 9 steps. He did have our 3 phases.
Yes.
He did actually do that. He did say there was a difference between an interview and an interrogation. He accurately labeled some of it, but I'll give him a C-. So let's see.
Okay, all right. I'd say maybe a C.
Maybe a C. Okay. We'll give him a C is what we'll do, yeah. Let's give him some extra credit to explain himself.
This video, there are serious questions to be answered about the effectiveness and the trustworthiness of the Reid technique.
Okay, so now he's going to get to his point. All right, so we've spent about 15 minutes, and a good part of that, too, was the stuff in the beginning. Let's see what he has to say the remainder 6 minutes.
That's due in large part to its propensity to acquire false confessions. First, the entire point of the Reid technique is to walk a suspect into a confession by slowly and methodically removing any alternatives that do not infer guilt. The technique is not focused on solving a crime because, as noted earlier, it should only be used on a suspect when there is a reasonable certainty of guilt through other evidence. Its only purpose is to obtain a confession.
The only purpose of the Reid technique is to obtain the truth, not the confession.
This is what they constantly say, is to get a confession. They constantly say this, Dan. This is just a never-ending,
The Reid technique is, as he put it, in it's true, 3 phases. The Reid technique can consist of gathering background information about the individual, going through an interview with an individual, and at the conclusion of that interview, saying that you let the person go, and the officer or investigator's conclusion is, I don't believe that this individual had anything to do with committing the crime. That's the Reid technique as well. Mm-hmm. Let's not always just look at the doom and gloom in this whole thing.
Exactly.
Is that let's not ignore the innocent person.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the Reid technique. And the Reid technique is often used on suspects based on an officer's hunch.
What? A hunch? Listen to what you just said, Dan. Did you describe a hunch?
Earlier, 3 phases of the Reid technique, the factual analysis, is that what is leading this investigator to interrogate the person is not a hunch. Okay?
Exactly.
This is not usually done maliciously, but can still cause major problems for an...
And again, he's made 2 unfounded assertions that it's to get a confession, not the truth, and you're going off of an officer's hunch. I mean,
investigation, because the psychological pressures at work make denying one's guilt for an extended period extremely difficult, regardless of whether the suspect is guilty or innocent.
Dun, dun, dun. I mean, come on.
So let's think about that. You've been sitting in an uncomfortable chair for hours at a time as two officers tell you in no uncertain terms.
Two officers tell you? You see you see what Simon did?
Yes.
Sneaking that in there. Two officers, you're uncomfortable.
What technique are you referring to?
Yeah,
right now?
you're not referring to us, Simon.
It's not the Reid technique.
Maybe it's what they do to the interviewees at Into the Shadows. They make them sit in an uncomfortable chair.
That you are guilty. Every time you protest your innocence, your claim is immediately dismissed, and the officers, by observing your body language, are becoming increasingly locked in on topics that make you uncomfortable. The room is hot. You have a headache. Emotion.
Okay, if the room's hot, the investigator would probably stop. I mean, he's acting like this is deliberately set up like this. It's not.
It's not.
No.
Are high, and you're on the verge of tears because nobody will accept what you're saying. And after all, would it really be that bad if you just gave the officers what they wanted? They're not mad at you, and they've been offering you a morally just...
You see, they always go to the most extreme in all of their examples. Oh, okay, Simon, what if somebody watches Into the Shadows and they're mentally unstable, or they're a juvenile, or they're open to suggestion, and they go outside and they shoot up a school? Does that mean that you should be held accountable, that what you did was bad? No. I mean, why do they go to these extreme, absurd examples every single time? I mean, this doesn't happen in real life.
You know what it is, Frank? It is the entertainment value.
Viable reason for why the crime may have happened, so why not just accept that reason and tell them what they want to hear so everybody can just go home? Now, this may not sound like something you'd fall for at a distance, but the Innocent Project's website estimates that...
Why are they... What's that? You say something, Dan?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hundreds of people do fall for this every...
So I need to see the citation that he's pulling from the Innocence Project.
I don't deny that there are false confessions, but what is it based on? Hundreds of people falling for this every year. Falling for what?
Exactly, yeah.
Single year. And consider this, the police will also oftentimes lie about the amount of evidence they have against a suspect and claim that even without their confession, they will likely be found guilty. This deception is perfectly legal in the...
Well, you can... Yes, it has been established that law enforcement can legally lie to someone within reason. But in the Reid technique,
guidelines, yeah.
In the Reid technique, though, we suggest is that you don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to lie to someone to get them to confess. Okay, and because lying to a suspect, you can certainly lose a lot of your credibility in there with the individual.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
United States and Canada, and for suspects who aren't aware that the police can legally lie to them, there is an increased risk that they confess to a less severe crime to pursue a more lenient sentence.
We don't teach that. No promises of leniency, no threats, and again, misrepresenting the Reid technique. I mean,
is still a false confession, and people are sentenced to prison every day because of it. Further compounding the problem.
Based on what? Like what?
I mean, within the legal system,
if that's happening, that's bad.
Right.
But why are you tying us to this?
And also, I think what you have to look at too in a lot of these is that just because a person may acknowledge that they did commit the crime is not going to be many times the sole idea or the sole purpose, or not even purpose, but that is not why they're found guilty. I mean, you go to trial, it may be by a judge, a bench judge determining that the person did it, a jury deciding an individual did commit the crime, but it's based on maybe one part, what the person is saying, but it's also is going to be based on evidence that is presented in the case. If it was you just say you did it, you're in jail. That's not how our system works.
Exactly.
Studies have also shown that certain groups of people, primarily juveniles, non-native speakers, and those with a reduced mental capacity...
And all of those people, we put them in a sandbox. We sandbox those types of subjects. You're not going and just going full 9-step bore on these individuals. And he would know that if he read our materials. And and that's on our website. That is, and he already knows about our website. He had a screenshot of our website. You saw it, Dan. So
Right.
I mean, misrepresentation.
Are at an elevated risk of providing a false confession, and authorities make little effort to accommodate their individual needs. The police want their confession, and they will not
No,
stop
the
until they
police
get one.
want the truth. The investigator, I don't care. You don't have to be using the Reid technique. I do believe, Frank, and I mean...
What is with this hand signal?
Right.
I see a lot of this out of people. It's weird.
I mean, I don't believe the investigator goes in there with the idea, I don't care what, I'm going to get the person to admit, I want a confession, so no matter what, I'm getting a confession. Maybe back in the old days, the 40s, 30s, that might have been true, 50s, but the investigators today, you want the truth. I mean,
well,
I don't think an investigator
what
wants
it is
to send an innocent person to jail.
It's people who have never done law enforcement thinking that that's how it is. Yeah. He's never been a cop. He's never been a detective. He's never even done private investigations.
And that's certainly I would have a tendency to think he's never done an interview, never did an interrogation.
Yeah, if I was talking about how race cars work, I'm sure someone that knows a lot about race cars would be like, Frank doesn't know what he's talking about. What? He's just making stuff up. At this point, it's just, most of the critics are the same. They say that we're based on bunk science. They say that we are to get a confession, not the truth. They say it produces false confessions. People with these, degraded mental capacities are at great. I mean, it's stuff that we hear all the time. There's nothing original here. So this is the point in the video where I have to cut in and let all of our viewers and listeners know that this is where the video dropped off. I ended up losing Dan's audio as well as the audio of Simon. I recorded this when I was in South Carolina, and at the time we were having some severe weather, so I'm pretty sure that impacted the final quality of the video recording. But we spent about another 10 or 15 minutes going over Simon's critique of behavioral science that a lot of the Reid technique is based on. And I'm here to let you know, Simon's understanding of behavioral science is about as deep and thorough and accurate as his understanding of the 9 steps of interrogation are. And if you remember how he mislabeled our steps, how he mislabeled the Reid technique in general, you're not really missing much. But at the same time, I do not want to put words in Simon's mouth. There will be a link in the show notes below. You can listen to what his critique is. But honestly, it's not even really worth our time to go back over it. So me and Dan made the decision. We're not going to re-record anything. We were going to end our video reaction right there. I would like to give a big thank you to everyone who made it this far in the video. And if you could, please do me a big favor. Share this video with somebody. Liking, subscribing, leaving a comment really, really helps. But a lot of the critics of the Reid technique, they've got millions of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Now, some of these subscribers, I don't know exactly how organic it is, if you kind of catch my drift. But Dan and myself, as well as everybody at John Reid and Associates, we work tirelessly to bring the Reid technique of interviewing and interrogation to a wider audience out there. So if you could just kind of help spread the word, we would really, really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for your time.